I created this list. It is my ABCs of being an Asian American writer. And like most things, there is an asterisk to this, and these are my ABCs, and everyone has their own alphabet, so I don't expect this to be entirely universal, so I hope at least some of this is relatable. So I will start with A, which is for Anna Martin. She was the first author who introduced me to a three-dimensional, complex Asian American teenage girl in a book, and I think that Claudia Kishi, the vice president of the Babysitters Club, is probably the most complex mainstream depiction of an Asian American girl, and I'm still holding out for one as good as her. And then there's B, which is for Buddhas and chopsticks, which are two things that make me cringe when I see them on the cover of certain books, and this long list includes everything from bowls of rice to dragon silhouettes to koi ponds. And then D is for diversity, which I feel like is a word that a couple people are getting sick of, and I can kind of understand why, because I feel like people of color have been doing the work for a long time, and if it's not getting the attention we feel like it deserves, it's probably on the editors and curators who decide what people see. So while we continue to try to storm the castle, maybe those editors and curators should be on all these diversity panels talking about how badly they want the D. So E enough is for existing, and by doing so, you might accidentally find yourself as a fetish, and that's obviously frustrating, but there's really not much. That's really not a problem I can solve on my own, since I feel like there are really only two options, which is either A, hope for these people to find it in themselves, in their hearts and minds, to change the way that they look at people, or just B, tell these people to fuck off. And then there's G, which is gaslighting. Sometimes I'll sit back and think that maybe I'm being too sensitive or taking things too seriously, but then all I have to do is log into Twitter and see that, yep, things really are this bad, and I'm reacting perfectly normally. H is for the hyphen in Asian American, which can act as anything from a bridge to a signifier to a marketing device, but at the end of the day, I just have to remember that if I overthink it, it's really just a grammatical dash. I is for intersectionality, which is another word that I hope doesn't lose its significance, because I feel like everyone, especially if you're Asian, has a racist grandmother or uncle, and it's kind of on us to get that out of our systems. JKL is for Joy Luck Club. On my first day of writing school, I remember we had to list our influences and goals, and I distinctly remember announcing to the class that I definitely didn't want to write the next Joy Luck Club. And when I think about that now, I want to punch myself in the face, because I would have loved to written the next Joy Luck Club. Just because I'd be loaded. I'm obsessed with writing about my family too. And I don't actually hate the Joy Luck Club, I just hate the people that base their entire knowledge of the Asian culture on that book. So I think it's great to rebel against everything that's come before you. Just make sure you actually know what you're rebelling against. And M is for my mom, obviously, see Joy Luck Club. And N is for my backup, nursing school again, see my mom, Joy Luck Club. O is for Oprah, who remains the literary gold standard to me, even though I know there are much more highbrow platforms out there, but she has yet to let me down. P is for payment, something I still feel weird asking for, even though I know my work deserves it, but no matter how many articles I read about leaning in or being assertive, it still makes me uncomfortable doing it. And Q is for words with a Q and not a U. So I play a lot of Scrabble, and it's one of the few things I can confidently say I'm amazing at. And pretty much one of the first things you learn when you play Scrabble are all the words that take a Q and not a U. And when I started writing, I felt like I was constantly being dealt the Q and not a U, just because I had so many blind spots when it came to writing and reading and just taking myself seriously as a writer. So I had to learn how to use my Q strategically, and I feel like a lot of the writers I admire the most have to do that as well with their own restrictions. R is for representation, and of course it's great for small kids to see themselves in who look like them in books and movies and TVs, but it's actually really important for 27-year-olds too, who are still holding out for the next Claudia Kishi. And S is for spam, which is a staple of a lot of Filipino diets, even though it might be seen as weird or gross or full of carbohydrates to a lot of American palates. When I started writing, I was hyper aware of how much spam my work contained, but at the end of the day, I kind of accepted that you're either going to eat the spam or not. I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. T is for thank you to all the authors who I admire and who inspire me and who I steal from on a daily basis. But also thank you to all the authors I hate read for teaching me what I definitely don't want to do. And then U and V is for uncomfortable and vulnerable, two things I feel constantly and I'm probably grateful for, because I feel like if I was an emotionally stable, happy person, I would have no material to work with. And W is for Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston, the first book I was assigned to read by an Asian author in school. And I probably got much more out of that book than I ever did out of Huck Finn or 1984. And X and Y is for a game called Exactly How Many? And the rules are you go to a literary event and you count how many other people of color are there invited, and if you get at least 4, you get to silently fist bump like you're in the last scene of The Breakfast Club. And lastly, Z is for 0, which is the number of times I felt at ease with who I am, whether it's Filipino or Asian American or a woman of color. And I feel like this unease works itself into the DNA of my work, so I would never try to erase it. And I feel like it compels me towards the subjects I'm most passionate about. So I'm incredibly grateful for all my uncertainty, because it is what fuels most of my work. So those are my ABCs. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And thank you to all the amazing readers who read. And there are books and stickers and buttons back there, and wine too. So thank you again for coming out tonight.